The collision. Dr. Sarah Chen checked her dive equipment one last time before boarding the transport pod, her hands moving with practiced efficiency through the pre-descent checklist, excitement buzzing beneath her skin like electricity. Deepwater 7, this is Transport Pod Alpha, requesting docking clearance. The response came through with a crackle. Cleared for Bay 3, Dr. Chen. Welcome to the deep. Sarah had dreamed of this assignment for years, the chance to work at the most advanced underwater research facility on Earth, studying bioluminescent organisms at depths humans had only recently begun to explore. But the real reason for her racing pulse was something else entirely. The facility housed the first collaborative research program between humans and the HFY, an alien species that had arrived 6 months ago from a water-covered planet in a distant system. Their presence on Earth still felt like something from a dream, impossible and yet undeniably real. The pod descended through layers of darkening blue, pressure readings climbing steadily on her display, until finally the massive structure of Deepwater 7 emerged from the gloom like an ancient cathedral of steel and reinforced glass. Initiating docking sequence, Sarah murmured to herself, guiding the pod toward the designated bay. The airlock sealed with a heavy clunk, and Sarah began the equalization process. But something was wrong. The pressure gauge spiked suddenly and warning lights flashed across her control panel. No, she muttered, fingers flying over the emergency override. The inner door burst open with explosive force, salt water flooding in from the corridor beyond, and in that surge of water came a figure. Purple skin glimmering under the emergency lights, dark hair flowing like silk in the current. Sarah was thrown backward, her helmet cracking against the pod wall as the figure collided with her, strong hands gripping her shoulders to steady them both. The water drained as quickly as it had come, emergency pumps roaring to life, leaving both of them soaked and gasping on the pod floor. Incredible, Sarah breathed, staring at the being before her. The HFY woman rose with fluid grace, her ceremonial research suit clinging to her athletic form, water streaming from purple skin that seemed to shimmer with an inner light. Her eyes were large and dark, framed by delicate features that were somehow both alien and beautiful. "Your eyes are consuming me, human," the woman said, her voice carrying a melodic accent that made Sarah's chest tighten. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to—" "Stop staring," the HFY cut in, stepping closer with predatory focus. "If you wish to understand the difference between our species, then stop hesitating. Touch my arm. See if we are truly so different, or are all humans simply afraid?" Sarah's breath caught. "Ma'am, I'm not in the habit of—" "You caused the flood," the HFY interrupted. "You stared, and now you hesitate." Her eyes narrowed with something that might be challenge or curiosity. Typical. Sarah exhaled slowly, trying to steady her racing thoughts. "Look, I didn't mean any disrespect. It was an accident. The airlock malfunctioned." "Everything humans do appears accidental, does it not?" the HFY said sharply. Before Sarah could respond, the woman turned and began walking toward the corridor, purple skin still glistening with moisture. "Wait," Sarah called out. "Let me help you. I'm a biologist. I should check if you're injured." "You have helped quite enough already," the woman said without turning. "Follow me now. We must address this situation before it becomes a diplomatic incident." Sarah hesitated for only a moment before following, her boots squelching against the wet floor. They passed 2 facility security officers who straightened immediately, their eyes widening at the sight of the drenched HFY and her ceremonial attire. "Perfect," Sarah muttered under her breath. "First day on the job, and I've already created an interstellar crisis." The purple-skinned woman led her through winding corridors that seemed designed for beings who moved through water as easily as air, finally stopping before an ornate door marked with symbols Sarah couldn't read. "My name is Kaya," the woman said, turning to face her, "daughter of Ambassador Theron. And you are?" Her dark eyes scanned Sarah with an intensity that felt almost physical. "Dr. Sarah Chen, marine biologist. I just arrived for the bioluminescence project." "Good," Kaya said, something like amusement flickering across her features. "I will remember the name of the human who decided to flood the airlock on my research rotation." "I didn't flood anything intentionally," Sarah protested. "You did," Kaya insisted. Then her expression softened slightly. "But perhaps not with malice. Come inside. We must address the situation before it becomes a diplomatic incident."
The Proximity Protocol.
The door slid open to reveal a chamber unlike anything Sarah had seen before. The walls curved organically and seemed to pulse with soft bioluminescent light, casting everything in shades of blue and violet that reminded her of the deepest ocean trenches. Kaya moved through the space with the ease of someone in their natural element, gesturing for Sarah to follow. "Sit," Kaya instructed, indicating a chair that adjusted itself to Sarah's form. Sarah sat cautiously, her wet clothes making her acutely uncomfortable. "What customs are you talking about?" Kaya turned to face her fully, arms crossed. "When an Equerry researcher is disrupted during their ceremonial preparation by another individual, particularly through physical contact or observation, it triggers what we call the bonding trial." "The what?" Sarah's voice climbed an octave. "A ritual among our people," Kaya explained, her tone carefully neutral. "When someone shows interest or challenge through proximity or sustained attention, the observed party may demand proof of intent. It prevents dishonorable misunderstandings." Sarah felt heat rise to her cheeks. "I wasn't showing interest, I was just surprised." "Irrelevant," Kaya said, stepping closer. "You stared as though studying me, which in Equerry culture suggests either scientific curiosity or personal fascination. Both require clarification." "This is insane," Sarah muttered, running a hand through her damp hair. "This is tradition," Kaya corrected, "and now my father and the Research Council have been notified." Sarah's stomach dropped. "Your father? The ambassador?" Before Kaya could respond, a chime sounded and a holographic projection materialized in the center of the room, Ambassador Therion's imposing figure appearing in shimmering detail, his purple skin a deeper shade than his daughter's, his eyes sharp with authority. "Kaya," he said, his voice resonating through the chamber, "explain this situation." Kaya straightened. "Father, there was an airlock malfunction. Dr. Chen's arrival coincided with my ceremonial preparation. The collision was accidental, but the observation was sustained. Did you invoke the trial?" "I did," Kaya confirmed. Sarah watched the exchange with growing dread, understanding that something significant was unfolding, but lacking the cultural context to fully grasp it. Therion's eyes shifted to Sarah. "Dr. Chen, do you understand what has been set in motion?" "Not really, but I'm willing to learn if it helps resolve this peacefully." Something that might have been approval flickered across Therion's features. "Honesty is valued among my people. The bonding trial requires that you serve as Kaya's shadow for one complete research cycle. You will accompany her in all duties, maintain constant proximity, and demonstrate honor until the trial concludes." "How long is a research cycle?" Sarah asked carefully. 48 hours, Kaya answered. Sarah's eyes widened. "You want me attached to her for 2 days straight?" "Not attached," Therion corrected. "Proximate. You must remain within arm's reach at all times. Failing to do so would be interpreted as disrespect, both to Kaya and to Equerry customs." Sarah looked at Kaya, who met her gaze with an unreadable expression. "And if I refuse?" Sarah asked quietly. "Then your position at Deepwater 7 will be terminated, and the collaborative research program may be jeopardized. My people take these customs seriously, Dr. Chen." Sarah felt trapped, but something in Kaya's eyes made her pause. There was a challenge there, yes, but also something else. Curiosity, perhaps, or maybe hope. "I accept," Sarah said. "I'll complete the trial." Kaya's expression didn't change, but Sarah thought she saw the faintest tension leave her shoulders. "Excellent," Therion said. "Kaya will explain the protocols. Remember, Dr. Chen, constant proximity means exactly that." The hologram flickered and vanished. Silence fell between them. Sarah became acutely aware of how close Kaya was standing, close enough that she could see the intricate patterns in her purple skin, like subtle currents beneath the surface. "You should know," Kaya said softly, "that this trial is difficult even for Equerry who understand the cultural significance.
For a human, she trailed off. I'm tougher than I look, Sarah replied. I noticed, Kaya said. And was that amusement in her voice? So what now? Sarah asked. Now we begin. Kaya moved toward a wall panel. First, you need dry clothes. I cannot have my shadow looking like she was dragged through a riptide. Sarah followed, maintaining the required proximity. Your shadow, is that what you're calling me? For the duration of the trial, yes. Kaya opened a storage compartment, pulling out what looked like a variation of the Aquari research suit. This should fit. It is designed for human physiology, but incorporates our technology. Sarah took the suit. The material was unlike anything she had touched before, smooth and almost liquid in texture. Where do I change? Here, Kaya said simply. Here, with you watching? Constant proximity, Kaya reminded her, though she turned slightly to give Sarah a degree of privacy. You will need to become comfortable with my presence, Dr. Chen, and I with yours. Sarah's hands trembled slightly as she peeled off her wet clothes, hyper-aware of Kaya's presence even with the woman's back partially turned. The suit slid on easily, conforming to her body like a second skin. How does it feel? Kaya asked. Strange, Sarah admitted, but good actually. What is this made of? Biopolymers from my homeworld. Kaya turned back to face her, her eyes sweeping over Sarah's form. It suits you. The way Kaya looked at me made Sarah's breath catch. Thank you, Sarah managed. Come, Kaya said. We have work to do. My research rotation begins in 15 minutes, and you must learn to move with me, not behind me. They left the chamber together, and Sarah discovered that matching Kaya's fluid movements required concentration. The Aquari woman moved with a grace that seemed almost choreographed, each step flowing into the next. Other researchers stopped to stare as they passed, humans and Aquari alike, watching the unusual pairing with undisguised curiosity. They are wondering why you walk beside me, Kaya murmured. Let them wonder, Sarah replied. Kaya glanced at her, surprise flickering across her features before she quickly masked it. They entered the main research laboratory, of vast tanks containing specimens from various ocean depths, bioluminescent creatures that pulsed with ethereal light. Beautiful, Sarah breathed. Yes, Kaya agreed. But when Sarah looked over, Kaya was watching her, not the specimens.
The confined truth. The research laboratory hummed with activity as Kaya approached her primary workstation, a curved console that interfaced with dozens of specimen tanks arranged in a semicircular pattern around them. Sarah stayed close, watching as Kaya's fingers danced across holographic displays with practiced efficiency. These organisms, Kaya began, her voice taking on a different quality, softer somehow, more passionate. They communicate through light patterns, similar to species on my homeworld. That's why you're studying them? Sarah asked, leaning in to see the readings. Partially, Kaya admitted, but also because understanding how life adapts to extreme pressure and darkness may help my people better understand your oceans. Their shoulders brushed as Sarah shifted to get a better view. Both of them went still for a heartbeat before Kaya continued her explanation. Here, Kaya touched a control and one tank illuminated, revealing a jellyfish-like creature that pulsed with rhythmic blue light. Watch the pattern. Sarah watched, mesmerized. It's repeating, like a message. Exactly, Kaya's eyes lit up. You see it too. Most humans cannot distinguish the subtle variations. I've spent years studying marine communications, Sarah said. Patterns are my specialty. Then perhaps this trial will be more productive than I anticipated, Kaya said quietly. They worked in synchronized silence for the next hour, Kaya explaining her research while Sarah absorbed everything, occasionally offering insights that made Kaya pause and reconsider her assumptions. You challenge my conclusions, Kaya observed. Is that a problem? Sarah asked. No, Kaya said, meeting her eyes. It is refreshing. Most researchers simply agree with me. Maybe they're intimidated, Sarah suggested. You're the ambassador's daughter. And you are not intimidated? Kaya's tone held genuine curiosity. Sarah smiled slightly. I'm terrified, but not of your title. Then what? Kaya asked. Before Sarah could answer, a loud chime echoed through the laboratory. Kaya's expression shifted instantly, going carefully neutral. "What is it?" Sarah asked. "The isolation chamber," Kaya said, her voice tight. "The trial requires a 12-hour confinement period, you and I alone in a sealed environment." "When?" Sarah felt her pulse quicken. "Now," Kaya said, already moving toward the laboratory's exit. Sarah followed, maintaining proximity as they navigated through corridors that grew progressively quieter until they reached a reinforced door marked with Aquari symbols. "This is a pressure chamber," Kaya explained, "designed for emergency situations. It can sustain 2 individuals for up to 72 hours with full life support." "And we're going to be locked in there for 12 hours? Sarah's voice came out steadier than she felt. "Yes." Kaya pressed her palm against the entry panel. "This is where many participants failed a trial." "Because of the confinement?" Sarah asked. "Because of what confinement reveals," Kaya replied. The door slid open with a heavy sound. The chamber was smaller than Sarah expected, perhaps 10 feet by 10 feet, with curved walls that give it an almost room-like quality. Soft lighting emanated from panels embedded in the ceiling, and there were 2 sleeping alcoves built into opposite walls. "Once the door seals, we cannot leave until the timer completes. There is no emergency override unless life support fails." "I understand," Sarah said. Kaya entered and the door sealed behind her with a definitive thump that seemed to echo in Sarah's chest. "Now we wait," Kaya said, but she didn't move away. Instead, she stood close enough that Sarah could see the subtle rise and fall of her breathing. "Can I ask you something?" Sarah ventured. "You may," Kaya said. "Why did you really invoke this trial? You could have claimed the airlock incident was purely accidental. No one would have questioned it." Kaya was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "Because if I had not invoked it, the council would have interpreted the incident as weakness on my part, inability to command respect even from a newly arrived human." "That seems harsh," Sarah said. "My people value strength," Kaya replied, "and I am expected to embody that value. As the ambassador's daughter, my actions reflect on my entire family." She moved to one of the alcoves, sitting on its edge. Sarah followed, sitting on the opposite alcove so they faced each other. "There is something else you should know," Kaya said, her hands clasping together in her lap, "about why this trial is particularly complicated for me." Sarah waited, sensing the importance of whatever Kaya was about to reveal. "I am bonded, or rather, I am intended to be bonded, to another Aquari named Vorath. The arrangement was made by our families before we came to Earth." Sarah felt something cold settle in her stomach. "An arranged marriage?" "Not marriage, exactly. Bonding is more profound. It is a merging of life paths, careers, futures, everything." "Do you love him?" Sarah asked quietly. Kaya's laugh was bitter. "Love is not a requirement for bonding among my people. Compatibility, status, and mutual benefit are what matter." "That's not an answer," Sarah pressed. "No." She met her eyes. "I do not love him. I respect his position, his achievements, but there is no—" She searched for the word. "Spark." Sarah's heart was beating too fast. "Then why go through with it?" "Because if I refused, it would disgrace my family. Because Vorath is powerful and vindictive. Because I have never had a reason compelling enough to justify breaking the arrangement." The air between them felt charged. Sarah stood and crossed the small space, sitting beside Kaya on her alcove, close enough that their knees almost touched. "Until," Sarah prompted. Kaya looked at her, really looked at her, and Sarah saw vulnerability there that took her breath away. "Until a human biologist flooded my airlock and stared at me like I was the most fascinating creature she had ever encountered," Kaya whispered. Sarah's hand moved of its own accord, hovering near Kaya's. "Kaya." "This is dangerous," Kaya said, but she didn't pull away. "What I am feeling, what this trial is revealing, it complicates everything." "I know," Sarah said, her fingers finally brushing against Kaya's. The touch sent electricity through her entire body. Kaya's breath hitched. "You should not touch me." "You told me to," Sarah reminded her. "Back in the airlock. You challenged me to see if we were different." "That was before," Kaya said.
Before what? Sarah asked. Before I realized we are not different enough. Kaya turned her hand palm up, and Sarah laced their fingers together. The touch was gentle, but it felt monumental, like crossing a threshold that could never be uncrossed. Tell me about your world, Sarah said softly, needing to fill the silence before it became overwhelming. Kaya exhaled shakily. It is covered entirely in water. We have cities in the depths that you cannot imagine, structures grown from living coral that pulse with light. My people swim between them like you walk through your streets. It sounds beautiful, Sarah said. It is, Kaya agreed, but it is also rigid, traditional. There is little room for deviation from expected paths. Is that why you volunteered for Earth? Yes, Kaya admitted. I thought perhaps distance would give me clarity, help me accept my future with Vorath. And has it? Sarah knew she shouldn't ask, but couldn't help herself. Kaya squeezed her hand. It has given me something far more complicated than clarity. They sat like that for what might have been minutes or hours, hands clasped, speaking in low voices about their worlds, their work, their dreams. The isolation chamber that had seemed claustrophobic now felt intimate, a bubble outside of time. Sarah, Kaya said her name for the first time. When this trial ends, everything becomes more difficult. I know, Sarah replied. Vorath will not react well, Kaya continued. He has been watching my activities closely, waiting for any sign that I might dishonor our arrangement. What will he do? Sarah felt unease creep up her spine. I do not know, Kaya said honestly. But he is not a being who accepts rejection gracefully.
The sabotage. The isolation chamber timer displayed 3 hours remaining when the lights flickered and died, plunging them into absolute darkness. That should not happen, Kaya said, her hand tightening around Sarah's. The backup systems are redundant. Sarah's training kicked in immediately. Stay calm. Life support is on a separate grid. A metallic scraping sound echoed from above them. Both women froze. Someone is in the ventilation system, Kaya whispered, pulling Sarah closer. Sarah's eyes were adjusting to the darkness when she saw it. A faint shadow moving across the vent grate overhead. Kaya, move. Sarah pulled them both sideways just as the grate crashed down. A figure dropped into the chamber with predatory grace. In the dim emergency lighting that suddenly activated, Sarah could see purple skin. But this wasn't Kaya. Vorath, Kaya breathed, positioning herself between Sarah and the intruder. Hello, beloved. Vorath's voice was cold, smooth, dangerous. He was taller than Kaya, broader, with patterns on his skin that seemed to shift like oil. Did you think I would not notice your little human distraction? This is a sacred trial, Kaya said firmly. You have no right to interfere. Sacred, Vorath laughed. The sound harsh. You invoke ancient customs to avoid your obligations to me. You shame both our families. He moved closer, and Sarah saw the weapon in his hand, a crystalline blade that pulsed with blue energy. I shame no one, Kaya replied. You shame yourself by breaking into a sealed chamber. I am correcting a mistake, Vorath said, his eyes fixing on Sarah. Remove the human. Restore order. Sarah stepped forward despite Kaya's attempt to hold her back. I'm not going anywhere. Brave, Vorath sneered. Or foolish. Human physiology is so fragile. He lunged, the blade slicing through the air where Sarah had been standing a heartbeat before. Kaya struck from the side, her movements fluid and precise, connecting with Vorath's ribs. You dare attack me? Vorath snarled, spinning to face Kaya. I dare protect what is mine, Kaya shot back. Sarah grabbed a storage panel door, wrenching it free and using it as a shield as Vorath advanced. Your attachment to this human proves you are unfit for bonding, Vorath hissed. When she is gone, you will see reason. He feinted towards Sarah, then reversed, striking at Kaya, who barely deflected the blow. The council will hear of this, Kaya said, breathing hard. The council will hear that a human attacked you, and I heroically intervened. Who will they believe? The ambassador's daughter, or a stranger from a primitive species?
He pressed his attack, driving them back against the chamber wall. Sarah saw their opening. While Vorath focused on Kaya, she swung the panel with all her strength, connecting with his arm. The blade skittered across the floor. Vorath roared in fury, backhanding Sarah with enough force to send her sprawling. "Sarah!" Kaya's cry was anguished. In that moment of distraction, Vorath grabbed Kaya by the throat, lifting her against the wall. "You have made your choice. Now suffer the consequences." Sarah's vision swam, but she forced herself to move. Her hand closed around the fallen blade. The crystal felt alive in her grip, warm and pulsing. "Let her go," Sarah commanded, rising unsteadily. Vorath turned, surprise flickering across his features. "You cannot even hold it properly. Try me." For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Kaya's knee drove upward, connecting with Vorath's midsection. He dropped her and she collapsed, gasping. Vorath staggered toward the vent. "This is not over, Kaya. I will see you broken before I accept your rejection." "Then you will wait forever," Kaya rasped. Vorath pulled himself up into the ventilation shaft, disappearing into the darkness. Sarah dropped the blade and rushed to Kaya's side. "Are you hurt?" "I will survive." Kaya touched her throat tenderly. "But Sarah, he will return, and next time he will bring others. Then we tell your father. We expose what he did. Kaya's family is powerful. They will deny everything, claim we staged this to break the bonding." "There has to be evidence," Sarah insisted. "Security footage, witnesses." "In a sealed isolation chamber?" Kaya asked. "We're alone. That was the point." Sarah helped Kaya to their feet. The emergency lighting cast strange shadows across the chamber. "What do we do?" Sarah asked. Kaya met her eyes, decision crystallizing in her expression. "We finish the trial, we emerge with honor, and then," she took Sarah's hand, "we fight for the right to choose our own path." "Together?" Sarah asked quietly. "Together," Kaya confirmed. The remaining 3 hours felt like an eternity. They stayed close, taking turns watching the vent, neither willing to risk another surprise. When the timer finally reached 0, the door unsealed with a hiss. Standing outside was Ambassador Theron, thanked by security. His expression was grave. "Daughter," he said, "we need to talk." The choice. Ambassador Theron's private office was a study in controlled power. The walls displayed slowly shifting patterns that reminded Sarah of ocean currents, hypnotic and vaguely threatening. "Explain," he commanded, his eyes moving between Kaya and Sarah. Kaya straightened despite her obvious exhaustion. "Vorath infiltrated the isolation chamber. He attempted to harm Dr. Chen and threatened me when I defended her. Vorath claims you summoned him, that you wished to end your bonding privately, and Dr. Chen attacked him when he refused. That is a lie." Kaya's voice rang with authority Sarah had not heard before. "He broke into sacred trial protocols. He carried a weapon into a ceremonial space. He assaulted both of us." Theron turned to Sarah. "What is your account, Dr. Chen?" She met his gaze steadily. "Everything Kaya said is true. Vorath entered through the ventilation system. He made it clear his intention was to eliminate me and force Kaya into submission. Strong accusations. Vorath's family will demand proof." "I have proof," a new voice said from the doorway. Commander Isabella Torres, head of Deepwater 7 security. She was a compact woman with steel gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. "Commander," Theron acknowledged, "I took the liberty of reviewing all security feeds when the isolation chamber experienced its power failure. Unusual since those systems are designed to be tamper-proof." She activated the display. Footage appeared showing Vorath accessing a maintenance panel 30 minutes before the chamber went dark. He disabled the internal cameras, but he forgot about the external environmental sensors. More footage played, showing Vorath entering the ventilation system. The thermal signatures were unmistakable. "This is enough," Kaya breathed. This is only the beginning, Theron said quietly. His expression had shifted from neutral to dangerous. Vorath has committed crimes against our most sacred customs. He will answer for them. Ambassador, Isabella said, with your permission, I would like to place Vorath in custody immediately. Granted, Theron replied. And Commander, ensure he cannot communicate with his family until formal charges are filed. Isabella nodded and left swiftly. Silence fell in the office. Theron studied his daughter with an expression Sarah could not read. You invoked the bonding trial knowing it would provoke Vorath. I invoked it because Dr. Chen deserved dignity. That it also gave me distance from an unwanted bonding was simply practical. Simply practical, Theron repeated, something like amusement in his tone. Daughter, you are more like your mother than you know. He turned to Sarah. Dr. Chen, you have completed the trial with honor. More than that, you have protected my daughter at risk to yourself. My people value such loyalty. I did not do it for political reasons, Sarah said quietly. No, Theron agreed, which makes it more valuable. He looked between them. The bonding trial has concluded. Normally, this would end all obligations. Normally? Kaya asked carefully. However, Theron continued, you have both demonstrated compatibility that is rare even among our people. The Council has reviewed your performance throughout the 48 hours. Sarah's heart began to race. They have proposed, Theron said slowly, that if both parties are willing, the trial could be converted into a bonding petition. Father, Kaya's voice was barely a whisper. I am not commanding this, Theron said firmly, but I am informing you that the option exists. It would require Dr. Chen to undergo cultural integration training, learn our customs, prove her commitment over time. And it would require you, Kaya, to accept that bonding with a human will be controversial. There will be opposition, political complications, challenges to your status. I understand, Kaya said. And you, Dr. Chen, would you accept such a path? It would change your life fundamentally. Sarah looked at Kaya, who watched her with an expression of barely contained hope mixed with fear. 2 days ago, I thought I was coming here to study bioluminescent jellyfish.